We are. We're
Oh, I
officially.
thought
And
I thought
three.
that I thought that music was on the.
No, that's my timer thing that goes off.
Oh, geez, that was like
Wouldn't
so
that be
good.
off it though?
That'd be freaking awesome. Our news desk music.
Is Lady Tina? Is she like frozen in time?
Oh,
Oh, she just translated. She's been doing a lot of that lately. How's everybody doing out there? You
There's one.
juggernauts, powerful and unstoppable. You observers, participators, benevolent determinators, using imagination, desire, benevolent intentionality with some staying power, working on the inside out, changing your atmosphere, loving big love, practicing loving big. How's
Amen.
that religion,
Come on.
everybody? That's a good religion. You know, right? Everybody's got a religion. Hey, speaking of religion, so if there's like a kingdom of God, is the government of God, the kingdom of God, big love, Yahweh, Jesus, Yahushua, Jesus, is the kingdom of God here on the earth involved in what's happening here on the planet? What do we think? And if the government of God
Absolutely,
is
yes.
here and the kingdom is here, well, where is it? Huh.
It's in you.
Oh, it's in me. It's in you too.
so
Yep.
2,000 years ago, if the timeline's accurate, the caveat there, um, he said it was at hand.
Yep.
And I wonder if
Kingdom
that's a
is now and the
translation
kingdom
of
is coming.
that. Yeah, like what does at hand mean? It's a it's
Mm.
a it's a turn of
Close
phrase, but
distance.
right in front of your
Right.
face.
Well, he was right there in front of you. Like for them, if you think context, he was standing in front of them. He was the kingdom. He was a manifestation of the kingdom in its fullness as a son of God, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. I am here. Right.
Yep.
And I think that's the idea, is that he doesn't live in brick and stone, but he lives in the flesh. He lives in the heart. He lives in the construct of man, and especially in the construct of the new kainos being that Christ was. He was the prototype for, saying the kingdom is at hand. Before, it was rumors and manifestations that moved around, but now I have arrived. This is the kingdom. This is how Yahweh wants to establish, Father wants to establish. And it is now, and it is coming, which means this idea of increase, right? Which reaches back to Isaiah 11, that says that the kingdom will have no end, and its increase will be forever. So it's the idea of this almost like an iceberg concept. For me, it's like a glacier, right? Where it just sits there. And in the second, you don't even see it moving, but you know that it's constantly creeping. And it is a force to be reckoned with. You can't stop it. It chisels mountains down, right? It reshapes the contours of the earth, and it just moves. It constantly grows. And I know that the analogy doesn't go is not a perfect analogy, because our actual natural glaciers shrink and grow based on weather, but his kingdom is this immovable, immutable force that's constantly growing. And sometimes it doesn't look like it's growing, right? It doesn't feel like but it's never shrinking back. There's no decrease, which is hard to say, because we look at the world and we say, well, what about the increase in wickedness? What
Hmm.
about the increase in coldness of the heart, and the lack of love for one another? And my only answer at this point, in my finite understanding, is to say we're in our natural finite state of being. We're a snapshot in the time frame of history. And if we were to go up above the sun, and we can look at the timeline of man, we can see how there is an increase going. I mean, Justin Abraham's probably one of the more vocal ones out there that's talking about there's absolutely an increase in, and you can see it, you can measure, you can and see the manifestation of it. And yes, the wickedness is increasing, but really, is it? Maybe it's more visible, but
Right.
as you know, it's always been there under the surface, but now, and you've never seen it growing, but you pull it back and you're like, oh my gosh, where'd all this come from? Well, it was always there. We're just now giving it sunlight because now it's time to address it. And so it looks more vicious and it looks more devastating. But the reality is that it was always there. It just was a festering cancer underneath the surface of mankind. And now Yahweh's saying, now is the time for us to peel that back and reveal what was always there so that we can, as sons, take on board this idea that we're going to deal with this.
Justin talked about too in Beyond Human that Boston C's been musing, doing some reading. Looking forward to seeing them this weekend. And he talked about, which I thought about, and I said, man, that's kind of really cool because that kind of ties in what we talk about is that when you talk about timelines, you think of a linear single timeline in your life. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 no. Each of us have multiple timelines based on the choices that we make. And I was just like, that's fascinating. So we're living in an age right now below the sun with all the chaos. We know that everything changed in 2020. We're in season 5. It's the month of July, episode 7, and we'll be doing that for the next eternity. And so the choices that individually that mankind is making below the sun, because obviously, let's just be frank, Big Love has gotten everybody's attention since 2020. So we're all having to kind of choose and reevaluate who we are, where we live, what we do for a living, what kind of person am I? So it's amazing. So we are all operating individually on our own unique timelines, depending on the choices. And then collectively, all of those choices, Yahweh is still moving us in a direction, a benevolent direction that is just, we win. It's a done deal. But to be able to choose, to be aware of that, and then to make the decision to say, you know what? If I just make good choices out of my intuition, out of love, I may not have all of the things below the sun and all the dreams, but something tells me that's the highest and best timeline you can operate on. Is what I'm thinking. So the kingdom of God is very much active here below the sun because you see what you're talking about. The light is being revealed. It's been pretty nasty. Fake money's been around since the 1600s. I mean, it's just how far back do you want to go? King Jimmy, you get a 300. I mean, really? Keep going. I mean, it's just like, wow. And then you say, well, you know, Lord, why? Why so much time? But we live outside of space and time. So we don't have his perspective. But you can recognize, I believe, that we are in the time of the transition of, you know what? This corrupt, malevolent, hidden stuff, it's finished. They're toast.
They're like rabid dogs.
Huh?
It's like rabid dogs. It's like, pushed back in the corner. They know their time is. I think that's the beauty of it is we know the signs and times that a rabid dog pushed back in a corner is going to be more vicious and it's just going to do much more damage, right? It's almost like nonsensical the kind of choices that this crazy animal is going to do, but we know that that's because their end is near, right? That there's a change, a shift, and they can no longer stay in the hidden shadows anymore.
Yeah. And when you look at that, I think vibrationally, and then with the resonance and the frequency of your own body, if you find yourself getting caught up in news, and did you hear about the Secret Service, this and that, and the other thing, and Biden's wearing a mask. I mean, if you get caught up in all of this stuff, you're going to continue to get tripped up and frustrated. I mean, it's time for the mature ones, because those that are stuck below the sun are going to, they're looking for us to model. I mean,
Right.
my dad said this, maybe think about it. Today's my dad's 87. Love my dad. He's still
Happy
alive.
birthday, Dad.
He's
Yeah.
a good man. And, but man, when I was real young, because I'm the oldest, although I knew I had older siblings that I never saw that I'll see on the other side. I don't understand all that, why I know that, but anyhow, I do. But my three younger siblings, my next in line was my sister, 4 years younger. And my dad would always just say, you need to set a good example. You need to set a good example. And I'm not having a go at my dad. I love my dad. But you need to, as fathers, as sons, and all this, we need to be that example, to model it, so we can look and say, so that's why, Jeff, I honor you and Jess for what you're doing with the boys. What an opportunity to see what they're going to be like as they begin to come into all they're called to be. It's going to be like crazy. I mean, yeah. So I don't know where we're going now. Talking about timelines and choices. Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about, you're talking about, since the theme of that we started this conversation on is the extension or the manifestation of the kingdom of heaven. I think part of the biggest part of the manifestation is the rewiring the way we think. Because the way we think changes the way we speak, changes the way we do. Right. And so everything is getting exposed. Every institution, every way, every protocol, every cultural choice or construct is being questioned in my household. There's not one area that has not been touched by the question, why? Why do we do that? Why do we continue in this? And most of it is getting a real good hard look at and causing us to change. And it's not just, my wife and I making this internal discussion and or having this internal discussion and making these external decisions, but we brought the boys in, right? We brought the kids in into discussion. And it's kind of funny because, our children will take what we say and what we do, and they go to the next level with it. They make it more extreme. And so I've had to kind of steward somewhat the wildness of, they're almost they're the boogeyman behind every rock. Well, okay, all right. I get what you're doing. That every rock has a boogeyman. There's some things there that are just human nature, not necessarily cabals involved. you know. But it's gotten them thinking about that stuff, and it's good. It's a healthy thought process, and that rewiring of the thought process is really, it's not just casting off restraint. It's putting on the covering of the kingdom. It's saying, okay, we thought this way and we realized we were lied to, and now we're casting off these lies, but we need to bring ourselves under the truth. Otherwise, we're going to get caught up in another lie, which is real easy to see, in the conspiracy camps and the conservative groups. It's, well, you just traded one life for another because you chose to get off this bandwagon of lies, but you haven't really sought out anchor because you still, or sought out truth because you're still, I think, some degree caught up in the other weaknesses of vengeance and
Yeah.
justification for why this should be cast off. And so I think that's the danger of this pendulum. So it's not just casting off lies, but it's running to the truth. It's an active. It's not enough to say I throw off this lie. I mean, truth is the one that knocks on the door, right? The kingdom of heaven says this is the truth, but you have to still run into it and be safe, right? So there's an activity that's required, an action of choosing the truth.
That's good.
At the same time as you're throwing out the lie. And I think that's part of what we're doing is as a family, we're saying these were lies. We were hornswoggled into believing this thing. Is that a word? Is that a no. Just came to mind.
It's a schmug and a hug. It's a word.
Yeah. We were brought into this unknowingly in our ignorance. our parents' ignorance, my grandparents' ignorance, and so we were just doing the same thing. But we're coming out of that. But we don't need just to cast off, but we need to, as a family, we need to come into alignment under the Father's heart, under his kingdom, and understand what it means to live in truth and manifest that in our speech and our actions, so that we aren't caught off guard again and brought into another lies that scratch the itch, that make us feel good, that makes us justify why we do what we do. I think that's important to consider when you're bringing light to a falsehood, is to not just cast it out. I mean, that's part of the issues. A lot of this rage in the streets, this rioting, is, yeah, that system is wicked. You know, the man is evil. Cast it off. But you're just trading one evil for another evil, because you are allowing your vengeance and your anger and your emotions of pain and hurt to lead you into other falsehoods. And you can't do that. It's just going to reap what you sow. It's going to bring back what you were bound under, just under a new master.
Well, it's like drinking poison, waiting for somebody else to die. And then you wonder that the stressors, the hidden anxiety and depression and fear that are below the surface, that you're going to like overcome. You're going to get really, I mean, it's just, and you wonder why, our bodies are sick and broken, because we're sick and broken in our thought process. And we just have to
Right.
just take on the responsibility. And big love is here. He's not having a go at any of us, right? And so we just have to
Right.
just choose that, maybe I don't know it all. I thought I did, but I guess I don't. Okay. A little bit of humility goes a long way.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is the MO, I think, of the fallen ones, is that they allow you a little bit of truth to pull you out, but then they push you over the cliff into another lie. And
Hmm.
you see that play out in Galatians, where Paul is talking to them about how you've come out of Judaism, but now the believers are starting from that, there's a group of believers who are coming out of Jerusalem that were basically teaching them how to follow the protocols of Judaism under the new heading called Christians, right? You've accepted Christ, but now you have to follow all these practices. And Paul just lets into them. He just like lays into the Gentile, the Galatians, says, you guys, you need to knock it off. You are freed. Why are you going back into the bondage again? Right? Why are you allowing these Judaizers to come in and bind you again into the old religion, the old wineskin? And he gets this is where we get the rough edged side of Paul, where he's like, it was all about circumcision. I'd rather they just whack it off completely. Just go mutilate yourselves. Because you're circumcised in the flesh, but not in the heart. And this is the issue. And so he lays out, these are the only things that we lay out for you. And it was just simple truth. Christ is the way. Give that relationship. That's what needs to lead you. And I think that's, even today, the church it's known these freedoms of the kingdom, but then over generations, new trappings, new protocols, new methodologies frame up another poisonous wineskin of religion. And we're having to again go through again, casting off these things. And there are, I think, times where we need to be aggressive. The kingdom of heaven suffers violence and is grabbed a hold by the violent, right? So the idea is that we desire truth so much that we might be overly aggressive against the lies, and you want to shake people by the shoulders, say, wake up already. You've been bought by a lie and you need to come out of this. The kingdom of heaven is much more simple. There's more truth. This relationship aspect is not what you think it is by what they're saying inside the four walls, right? You need to come out of that. And it's okay, I think, at times, to be aggressive about that, to get it in people's faces and say, this is insanity what you're doing. This is insanity to continue in this way. It's only bringing you into death. Get out of the lie. There's freedom here. There's hope and something greater than what you think you're bought into, you know. So there is an aspect of violence that is common. It feels similar to rioting in the streets, virtual rioting against, railing against the system of even the church. But we have to be careful about that when we're putting off is actually putting on truth and not just being bought into a new lie, you know.
So let me add
It's a
right
short.
there. This is one of the things that that I practice. So if I'm taking, because I post a lot on X, I say it over and over. I ride the wave of the headlines, and uh, and when I post, you know, I'll ask, Yahweh's, obviously, is this something that is beneficial? I'll make one or two comments about it just to bring to bring in an awareness, and then let anybody that catches it and reads the headline, they can go in and dive into the article. You don't have to take the leap in. And I lost my train of thought too, because what was you made your last point? I was going to tie it together. What was the last thing you said, bro? Remember your last thought? I apologize. The train just left the
All right.
station. I was going to tie it.
The
You
idea
said,
of trading off one lie for another lie, is that one?
yeah, I was tied into.
Coming under
Anyhow,
the
we'll just,
truth.
yeah.
Well, I was
Yeah.
getting the idea that resistance, it has a short-term effect. It does, and it even, you could even see it as necessary, but it's a narrow
Oh,
window.
there it is. Train just came in. When you read something or take in information that riles you up, right then and there on the inside, you can do in Yahweh what you need to do to get it out of your system and vent.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Lord, you reading this article? Yeah, Boston CMNU. Yeah, I was just wondering if you're here. Yeah, I never leave you nor forsake you. So as you read the article, right? And that's my point. Okay, I'm reading this and I'm vibrating. Like I want to, okay, well, you know what you do. Just go on the inside and let's go have some fun. And that's what we do. And we go and we entangle and we do stuff. And I don't know what all that looks like, but it's like riding a roller coaster. And it's just great when you're in the amusement park of Yahweh. Yahweh, I don't know how you're going to sort this out in November, but that's on you. But I'm having a blast because I'm not just riding the headlines. I'm not going into the articles. And that was my point I was trying to make. So you trade one lie from the next lie. But when you see injustices and things, okay, don't dance around it and like, ooh, I can't get that stuff on me. No, if it triggers you, go
Right.
into it, but then take the authority because you know who you are as a son and go in big love and go do stuff and then move on to the next thing and don't worry about the outcome.
Right. Well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's important and necessary to have the convo as you're reading, as you're going through it, because the
Don't stay
headlines
too
are
long.
designed to trigger us. They're designed and written to draw us into an emotion
Yep.
and to lead us down a certain road. And
Yep.
when you read those, you're like, okay, I think it's important you have to have a conversation with the Father, saying, are they just luring me down a road? And he may say, just leave it. Don't even bother with it. It's falsehood. It's not even a true statement. They're trying to rile up and cause contention where it wasn't necessary, right? Or there might be some legitimate concerns there. And so having Ruach as a filter, as a sounding board to work those out, I think is almost uh, critical to have a right perspective when you open, these propaganda rags in a sense, and begin to go into that stuff. It's
Listen to your body brain. Ian, I thought that was great when Ian taught that your four brains, right? Brain, heart brain, belly brain, your intuition, your body brain, the vibration and frequency. If you're vibrating and all of a sudden, like anytime I feel any kind of like fear, so immediately when I feel any kind of sense of like fear of anything, I immediately think, okay, lion hearted above the sun. Sit, take your position, fearlessness, right? Lion hearted, and then just stay. And then the fear kind of, so it's like, I think you need to be aware of your body when you talked about Ruach. Well, your body's what? A temple of what? Big love.
Mhm.
So when something's you vibrate and it's like, wow, what's going on here? Yeah, let's go ahead, take care of it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Ian called it, keep short accounts. I always love that. Yep. Yep.
But it seems like it's wash, rinse, repeat on a lot
Hmm.
of stuff. The disciples thought that Yeshua was there to establish a Davidic kingdom. And they had good reason to hope for that. They were getting screwed. And they had been for eons. To the point where, they weren't even, nowadays the Jewish culture, everyone knows it around the world. But at one point before Christ arrived, they were just a slave race. They weren't even like geopolitically significant. And so they had reason to want resistance. And it wasn't it. That was just another form of bondage. That the only way out of this is to establish our own cabal that does good stuff. Right? And it makes sense. But I get a feeling it's not like the adversary is playing both sides of the board. And we're getting suckered in. The answer to being lied to is not establishing a new system, because it's inevitable it will go and become another system of control that doesn't reflect the kingdom. It's not the
Right.
answer. Resistance, but it's so satisfying to think about when you feel like you're getting gut punched. I want to fight back for the right, and it's inevitable. Show me one system on the earth that has established via resistance a good thing, maybe a short-term benefit, but it reverts back because it's not
Right.
of a different likeness and kind to what was breaking the necks of the people to begin with. It
I feel
reverts.
like, and maybe I'm just biased because I grew up in this country, but the history of the original founding of this nation, right? That these men, as far as we know, I can certainly say in the past 50 years, there's been a lot of tearing down of the founding fathers in one way or another. But the original idea, whether truth or fiction, is that their hearts were turned to the Father in the best way they knew, with every intention of giving every man his sovereign rights, right? With the phrase inalienable rights given by God, right? There really wasn't any other system that established that as the context or the foundation for which to build a government by, where men could live in peace with one another and in bounty and provision. They defined this idea of sovereignty at the individual level, where no man could come along and take away the right to be who you're supposed to be, right? And then defining what these inalienable rights are. I think what's the closest that I know in modern history in the past 200, 300, 400 years that gets us closer to this context of what it might look like to live in a kingdom of heaven. And that as sovereign beings, part of the issue is that we have these systems of government are based on fear, right? Fear that the they'll lose control or lose power or lose influence in how things should move. This was established, even this country was established in a bit of fear, but it was a fear of like, we need to group together because we all want the freedom to be who we're supposed to be. And if we don't come together, those on the outside who are wanting to lord over us will be our masters and our slaveholders. And we need to join together and establish a community. And I think that was the initial good idea, you might say, of where this nation was established. Now, of course, we know it's gone awry because
Look good on
corruption
paper.
corruption corrupts ultimately, right? And that will always trend downward as long as there's corruption. The best well-intended ideas and concepts will always trend downward into chaos. And so, at least in the modern histories of man, I think it's been probably the closest experiment of government that we've had in the face of the earth to give us an idea of what it to live sovereign, to live as a man on his own land, serving God as he desires, as he knows best how to, and giving space and room for each one to do the same. That is a foreshadow that I think that we can look to as the stepping off point, you know, even as we've broken out of the wineskin of the modern church and breaking out of our other lords and masters of the pulpit and of the boards, and begin to say, hey, we need to step into this inalienable right of a sonship mindset. There's experiences that we've had thus far. We've grown leaps and bounds, but we've rubbed up against shoulders. How do we do relationship when you get this word from the God, from Father, to go do this, and it sounds contrary to what He's saying for me to do? How do we understand? See, if we can figure this out and still live in unity as sovereign sons of God, and understand how to walk in communion and unity together, this is, I think, encapsulating the idea that they shall know your mind by your love for one another, because your love for one another is an overarching capsule that uh, contains this idea of living as a sovereign being, a sovereign son of Yahweh, next to another sovereign son, both growing and moving as they're designed to without rubbing up together and causing our ideas to obfuscate or to usurp another's thoughts and movements, and growing and being as son on the earth. If we can do that as is intended above the sun, we become the model in the earth. We become the model government that every man is looking for, because we have established this understanding, and we're not just, it's not just an academic exercise, but an actual living, breathing manifestation of the kingdom on the earth. Sovereign sons operating in one and unity together, but yet each one is a force to be reckoned with in their sovereign movement and breathing and activity, never bumping up and rubbing and over usurping or overpowering another, but each given space to grow and to be who they're supposed to be. That is the model of the kingdom, I think. And I'm still talking in nuances that I don't fully understand yet. But I think in just the last 5 years, as us as a team, we begin to talk these out, we begin to express it, begin to manifest it in our own lives, is beginning to scratch the surface of what this kingdom might look like and how it should be modeled before the rest of creation, modeled before the rest of mankind, in stark contrast to these other governments, these other systems who use the power of the gun, the power of the law, the power of the judge to force people to move and act and behave a certain way. And that has never worked out, and it will never work out that way, right? It always devolves. So love, I think, is the ultimate governing tool. Love is the ultimate expression of the kingdom of heaven. And then manifestation of it in a community of sovereign sons is the best example that man can have of a government that will work, you know, and actually grow and increase.
So good, bro. And then it begins with this kingdom,
Right.
establishing each one of us this government. And when you got this relationship going on and you're getting a little authority, let's see how you interact with your family. See how you interact with your friends. Let's see, like when you talk about, you can hear, unity. It's so interesting how all, ministries, and even I've had to kind of just like, there were ministries I'm uncertain of. I used to watch and it's like, you know what? I'm not feeling it right now, you know? So you let it go and you move on. So why are you constantly looking at everybody else's ministry, being critical when you're not looking at yourself, which is obvious because what's coming out of your mouth, you're revealing what's in your heart, bro. Stop criticizing other ministries and stay in your own lane. So until the spiritual arrogance, hey, look at me, look at my ministry. Okay. Until that stops and you honor other ministries, regardless if you agree with their doctrine, their brothers and sisters, companions above the sun, and you're not demonstrating the love frequency. Until that happens, and the Lord is working with all them leaders, and he's bringing up young ones that haven't been dealing with generational junk. I'm in my 60s. Okay. You got your kids are not going to have to deal with the junk you and I had to deal with. That we're still dealing with our stuff because it's emboldened in our subconscious or whatever. So, yeah. So, start at home. Put your money where your love is. And then once we start doing that, then, so yeah, I mean, it's, love's the key.
Right.
And listen, and it's got four faces, right? And the justice and the judgment and the grace and the mercy is always flowing. The whirlwinds of justice are blowing on all of them. It's blowing breezily on all of the malevolent and the corruption, whether there's a little bit in you or not. Yeah. Right? The justice, it's gonna blow the little bit of compromise that, whatever it is, that thing. Stop looking at that thing. That's a little bit of compromise. Well, justice is blowing breezily. Because big love, that's love.
That's right.
Grace and mercy, all function, the kindness, the goodness.
But the dominion concept, right? I think it's interesting that he never removed the mantle of dominion. Be fruitful and multiply. It was a gift built into the framework of our DNA that he never withdrew. He never cut off. He put in things, I think, hindrances, boundaries, and hampered the power of it. He diminished its glory in a sense for our own sake and for mercy's sake, for creation. But yet he never removed it. And so the government by which this is established is how we rule. So if our government, like you just said earlier, we need to deal with this government. If this isn't dealt with, if this isn't cleaned up and we've got corruption through it, this is what rules out. This is what causes dominion. We rule from that point, that estate, and that becomes our manifested destiny, our manifested dominion on the face of the earth. And wickedness and corruption and evil will then come out of this kingdom. And you can see it played out. But when this kingdom is aligned where it should be and love rules through and through, then what is manifested? What does then dominion look like in creation? So the state of which your government is, it is thereby that state that you grow, that you rule out. You rule and have dominion. And it's either scorched earth or it's Garden of Eden that manifested from this kingdom. That's why it's so important.
So the dominion, be fruitful and multiply. So to spiritual, so the dominion is, big love is expecting us to have dominion, body, soul, and spirit. Right? Not like, hey, let's boom, boom, make babies. Right? So let's have dominion here. And then fruit comes out.
Right.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. Ooh, self-control. Big one. Big, 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 big. Right? So that's what I get. And to me, that's just the start.
Right.
I mean, all the work and heavy lifting and Mississippi, Lady Tina, chime in, please.
Well, it could be both, right? So take dominion, and multiply on the earth with kids, with your gardening, with what God's given us on the earth. It could be dominion if you're a son of God and you believe in that. Hey, I could have dominion over even in the cosmos. So it is that, but I've never thought about it as take dominion over yourself, body, soul, and spirit, having the spirit be the lead, take that dominion and multiply and have the fruit of the spirit and all of that. So I love that. That's like my highlight of today's whole topic was when you said that. It was like, wow, lights off. But I've just been sitting here the whole I first started waking up, which was, I'm sure it's probably for all of us, it was like hard because we've been so programmed for what we believed. And it was so hard. And when you started removing one little thing at a time, it's like either it all crumbled or either I could see myself with a hammer, like I'm in a video game, and I just see myself like pounding everything and breaking all of the things that I've been programmed in my brain down till there was nothing. And then going where we should all have started to begin with. I don't care if you want to be inside of a church or you don't. We should all have started with, okay, I'm a new creature, and that's what's there to teach me. That's what the seven spirits is there. That's what God and Yeshua is there. Like, I'm going to that source of the way, the life. I'm going to the door, and when I walk through, I can get what I need and the truth in that. So when you do that, you come together in a body, even if it is the church, and you're getting maybe some knowledge and some thoughts or some things through that minister that's trying to do a teaching and to guide you, but you also still listen to that still small voice that's in you, directing you and teaching you himself, our creator. The Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Comforter that's going to teach us all things. So you still listen to that and you grow from that. And we've had it so backwards that we've left God, the Holy Spirit, the seven spirits, everything that's kingdom out, and tried to get everything from man, from only man, who got him stuff from another man and got him stuff from another man. And everyone was taught from people. And so we're actually making people the God of understanding and all of the things we're that's another God when you're not getting the information from the true source, when you depend on getting it from someone else. That was like when we were in the healing rooms in Biloxi. God shut that down, And I know why he did, because people begin to use the people in the healing rooms that were maturing and praying and believing for their healing and seeing supernatural results as the God, not that it was coming through God within them, and that they didn't feel they could do anything of themselves, that they were not the same as us. They put the people at the healing room at a higher level and wanted them to do all of the praying and the healing and the supernatural, when God was saying, no, look, like, you're the same as them. You're all the same. You can go within, grow up so you can heal yourself, so you can heal others too, but grow them people up to be able to be trained up to be able to be mature enough to do that for themselves. And kind of wasn't happening. People were so dependent, and I think God just shut it down. He said, no, this is the end. My people are going to mature, because they're not going to be these places to just go and be dependent on, like they're the healer and they're the God. So that's the same thing that I'm finding in the church. You can go and you can listen, but it's more or less, I told my cousin yesterday, I said, you know what? The main thing for me is everything that I thought I knew, I just assume that maybe it's not true. I give it room to not be the truth unless Yahweh or Holy Spirit, someone has told me this is true. I give it room. And in order to listen to other people, I don't even say that they're wrong, because I'm not sure. Because I know that God's ways is not my ways. His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. And I just think that in a lot of ways, we all have almost everything not the way God had intended it to be, that we programmed ourselves to be. So it's all kind of messed up. So how can I tell someone, no matter how out there it is, that what they believe is wrong? I can't do that. I can listen. It doesn't mean I have to fall for everything. So I can listen, and I can give them grace to let them have their thoughts and their ways. But it doesn't mean that I have to believe that, but it doesn't mean I have to dismiss it, that there's any truth to it at all.
Right. Well, and we put on ourselves this, I think, idea that we got to prove to someone else truth or what is lies. And I think that is a false thing. Like I have a responsibility to make sure this person knows the truth. I don't think that was the good news commanded. It was just go out there and tell them the good news was, hey, there's a new connection or it's an really old connection reestablished, new connection through this guy, and now you don't have to die no more. And because you actually the apprehending of that abundance that you know in your DNA is supposed to be there. Well, now you can access it now, right? But you leave it at that. You don't tell them how to do it. You're doing it wrong. You know, I'm a time that drives me nuts. One of my sons will tell one of his young brothers, "You're doing it wrong." I'm like, knock it off. Do it the way you're supposed to do it, as I told you. Don't tell them I didn't give you that job. You're not doing it right. You've got enough problems as it is, you know? And I think that we put on ourselves this idea that I've got to go out and preach good news. And that means what that means is I go out and tell everybody what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's a misnomer. I really think
God is truth. Truth is
and the
not
sad
God.
thing is that you have a good heart, but you're lacking the relationship, because the way you're treating everybody else is you're revealing your lack of relationship with big love. And it's sad, but you love them where they're at, right? And you don't pick fights and try to win arguments. And that's why I just, love Noodle, hanging out with the riffraff out there, to maintain a relationship, because he gets it, not trying to win people. He is
No.
Jesus. He just has to show up and everybody else sees Jesus. He doesn't have to use Jesus's name. Okay? He is Jesus's name through the character when he shows up in the room. That's the beauty of what we do, man. We just have to show up.
I love my left wing brother.
I love.
I don't have to change his mind.
Hey, you
You
need
know?
two
It's a
wings to fly, man. You got to have like you need, right? Isn't that an eagle needs two wings, man?
And
You
the
ever
answer to
seen?
oppression is not a new theocracy. It's
right.
not. That's scary. You want to really be scared? You know, a broken system of government. Okay, yeah, that's some scary stuff, right? A freaking theocracy. I read enough sci-fi to know that that don't work, and it never has. And it wasn't the answer when Yeshua
But
came.
wh-
And the disciples, they didn't have the whole truth. They
what's
were
what's
functional.
what's Big Love's government? It's a theocracy, bro.
No, I don't
Oh
think so.
yeah,
No, a
Big Love is the high
theocracy,
love.
We,
religious
we used
rule.
human
I mean,
language to
maybe he's a
express
good
something
theocracy,
idea,
but
but
It's a
look at
theocracy.
nature. You want to see Yahweh's government? Look at nature.
no,
You
he's
don't
a.
see
I see what you mean.
political government, political groups being formed among the wolves and the bears, and you don't see all these nations being created by the birds and saying we're going to go to war. You know, the robins are going to go to war against the crows, and
Oh, that would
they
be a kind
don't.
of cool cartoon movie, right? For kids, I guess. I don't know.
Well, people actually written books like that,
Oh,
whole
okay.
cat genre. But you look at nature; they don't do that. Right? It's only man that's like stupid. Nature looks at us as like, why do you guys squabble among yourselves? There's plenty for everybody. But you, for some reason, you got this stupid idea in your head that you got to fight your neighbor for for your scratch. And we look at we have disconnected ourselves again, right? We disconnected from the garden. We disconnected from nature that is now screaming at us saying, hey, this is the way the government is established. I mean, Solomon writes about this. Proverbs writes about look to nature to understand how to act and behave. Your government is established, is being manifested before you in nature. Even
And that's
in the
what
New
the
Testament, it
Watchers
says
rejected.
all creation is telling of the kingdom of heaven. And yet we don't look. We
And
do,
that was
and
exactly what
because of
the
that,
Watchers were resisting. They looked at that system of government that Yahweh established in nature and said, no. Like, that was the rebellion.
that's like going back to the sovereignty thing, right? Creatures move, birds, the bees, all of them, they work in together, but they are sovereign in a sense. I won't use the bees because they're more of a entity as a whole, kind of unique situation. But the animals of the earth that walk around, I mean, they're the closest of government is a familiar community context, you know. And again, man puts on nature, personifies nature. It gives it emotion. It gives it constructs that are really closer to human constructs, not God constructs. And we put upon nature, and we say that these communities work this way, and they do all these things. It's just a way for us to relate with how, you know, beavers work or how squirrels work or how bees work. But we take our human concepts and we put on them nature, thinking that but we're really not doing a good job of understanding the kingdom of heaven by man's analysis and scientific study of nature, because we're putting on it a corrupt, broken system of our own hearts, not stopping and emptying ourselves of our own constructs and sitting there and just observing with an open heart and mind, saying, what are you saying about his kingdom to me? And this is why I love the Back to Eden series right now. This is why I'm consuming this, because from the ground up, the concepts are all being asked. If it's not nature, then why am I doing it? If there's no manifestation of the kingdom in nature, why am I doing this? This lording over each other. Nature doesn't lord over each other like we think. Again, we think that we have this whole food system thing as a hierarchy of the lions lording over the hyenas, and there's no lording concept. That's a man idea. Servitude, slavery. That's a man that we learned from the fallen. But this is not the concept of the heaven. And this is why Christ comes and says, don't be like the Gentiles, this construct of lording over one another. If you want to be the greatest, go down, go be the servant of servants, slave of slaves. The servant leadership is a love construct, preferential agape love. The slave, the stranger, treat them as your own family member, even better. Honor them when you bring them in the house, love on them, show them abundance to the stranger. I mean, these were laws that were given to Israel. They didn't do very well with it, but Christ came back and established it and said, love your neighbor as yourself. That means the stranger, right? And these were foreign concepts. That, well, it was funny because they're not foreign to Israel, but the way that he was now manifesting them was an aggressive example or manifestation of what they knew they should do, but they had just enough, right? I'm doing just enough to check the box. And he's like, no, go the extra mile. Go be aggressive with your agape love. Because this is the government of my Father. This is the government of heaven. This is how nature shows it. And then the altruism that exists in nature, we're blinded by that, by our systems of analysis and science. We've blinded ourselves to look at nature as we should, because it's telling of the kingdom of heaven. But we have blinded ourselves by our own constructs. I think of like the book that C.S. Lewis wrote, Out of the Silent Planet. It has a lot to do with this concept that Earth is this place where man sits, and it has severed itself from the rest of creation, and it's broken down and destructed. It's just scorched earth, and then you go off world. The story takes you off world, and you discover a whole other people group and a whole other species, a whole other nature that is contrary. And the idea of the silent planet is to keep this corruption stuck to earth so it doesn't filter into the rest of the earth, the rest of creation. And it's a really cool story. I have to go back and read it again, but kind of gives you this idea that we're harming ourselves. We separate ourselves out.
Yes.
And we've dumbed ourselves. We've blinded ourselves. We've stopped our ears like the Pharisees, right? Kingdom is at hand, and yet you cannot see it because you choose to be blind. You cannot hear it because you choose to be deaf, because you are more self-loved. You love yourself, and you've got this ego that is massive. It won't get out of the way. And you're not of this species that Father established. You're of this other. That's why he's like, you're of other father, the devil. You're not of my same father.
The enemy isn't Rome. It never was. And it still isn't.
No.
And the other
Right.
thing too is, I was, since the current president stepping aside or whatever, and he was speaking to the American people, this, that, and just made me think about that when, I know Israel is a hot topic, and I think it's a good reminder that there's 8 billion people on the earth. Every single individual, Big Love loves. He doesn't pick and choose. He loves everybody. But here's the difference. He loves all Americans, but not every American that says they're an American is an American. Not every Jew that says they're a Jew is a Jew.
Yeah.
Okay? Yahweh knows who's American. Yahweh knows who's a true Jew inwardly, and he knows who are his and who are not. And those who are currently are not, he doesn't love them any less than he does us. That's the amazing thing.
Right.
But he knows who the adversary is, and that's what humanity is just missing. Like, just cannot. I mean, how much more do you need to see? Apparently, a lot of people need to see a lot more than what they're saying to be persuaded. But in the meantime, Yahweh's persuading companions every single day, including today. It's happening all across the earth in real time.
Yeah.
It's shifting, just thinking different. Making different decisions below the sun of, maybe moving out of fear, this, the other, the uncertainty. But Yahweh is just pulling everybody into this love frequency.
Right.
And the more people can see what love looks like, and that's the thing, right? No, we're getting to the top of the hour, 2 minutes, is that the planet has a love problem.
And what does it look like today to carry the Romans equipment for an extra mile? I gotta admit, I have loads of internal resistance to that idea. We were just watching The Chosen as a family, and there was a whole episode where, I don't know of an example in the Word where they actually did it, where they actually walked an extra mile with the Romans. So they did it in the show, and it was an interesting play out. The disciples didn't get it, the Romans didn't get it. Like it messed them up. It messed them up. Like the disciples, like, this freaking sucks. What the heck are we doing? And the Romans didn't know how to handle it. Like, what? And it showed one centurion who's like, wait, at least give us the helmets back. Like it blew their minds. And what does that look like today? I don't know. I don't want to carry anybody's junk. I got enough. I got trouble with my own, And even in the show, they had that. They left their stuff. They had to drop their stuff to carry the Roman stuff, and just leave it on the side of the road, exposed. And what does that look like today? I mean, they didn't join the centurions. They didn't wear their armor and go to battles with them, but I don't know what that looks like. That's a legitimate question. But I can already tell, even before I answer it, I feel resistance in my soul to the idea of it. That's got to go. The cabal isn't my enemy.
We're at the top of the hour.
People with different ideas, they're not my enemy.
So good. Wow.
So good.
Love it. Love riffing like this. Isn't it just great? Never know what you're going to get, but it's going to be good.
Totally.
So we honor everybody that's out there live, everybody that'll listen to this later. Much love, good frequency, love, big love, practice loving big. Everything else will take care of itself. That's a good religion right there. Spread that religion. So until next time.
Until next week.
Yep. Love you all soon.
Love y'all soon. Bye for now.
Blessings, y'all.
And cut.
I still have not figured out how to.
Yeah, Noodle couldn't shut us off last week. We were getting some, we were back in the green room. We were drinking and smoking. Hey, is this thing off?
I still don't know how to do it. It doesn't let me take control.
I just gave you a host.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
So just go to more and then